Welcome back, everybody. Working on the 1525 Alice again. I got some felt in. I just cut out a couple of clutch access hole cover gaskets. It's 3/16 felt, F1 piece of 12 by 12. Just traced it out. Used the best judgment of what the original gaskets I had left as far as how big they should be. Hole punch, nothing too complicated there, cut them out. Here's this one on the tractor, looks pretty good to me. I think when it's all done and painted, I'll probably take a little bit of double stick tape and probably stick it to the cover, so when you take it on and off, it'll stay with it. Looks good though. Moving on. So the temperature is up to a balmy about 10 degrees above 0 Fahrenheit here today, which is a huge improvement over last night's 10 below 0. So I'm going to take advantage of this weather and made up this temporary cover to block the hole like so for the tractor out in the yard, because I wanted to pull that clutch assembly and bring it inside here to work on at the same time that I do this clutch assembly. Might as well do both at the same time if we're going to do it. And I want to block off that hole so we don't get snow and water and stuff in the transmission of the one in the yard. So I just took a scrap of plexiglass I had laying around and some junk gasket material just to somewhat cover up the hole. Let's go bear the cold and see if we can get it out of there. That's enough fun outside for today. Got the clutch out though. I even actually got the clutch fork arm out too. Came out pretty easily actually. Wasn't expecting that. So we can clean that all up. Let this stuff warm up now. You can tell it's all frosty. It's cold out there. But at least now we can do both clutch assemblies at the same time. So if we got to make parts, like I've said before, if you're going to make one part, it's just as easy to make two parts. So I just scraping off some of the big gunk on the clutch here, is kind of giving it a first initial inspection. You notice there's this homemade sheet metal shim underneath that nut. That's kind of odd, you know. This one's already got loose because this arm is on a key pressed on, well, not pressed on, but put on this shaft, held in place. That should not move. Only this center part moves. That's your clutch action, right? That's on a key as well. This one's all pretty tight, you know, nothing terrible. So I'm looking at this one. Well, this key, there's a fair bit of play there. Maybe with any luck, it's just the key. Okay. When I'm looking at this, I have not loosened anything there yet. Woo! That's not a good sign. I wonder what's going on there. That's hopefully just the key, but that's not a good sign. That should not be loose on there at all. So maybe we'll start taking things apart here and see what kind of carnage we got. Finding all kinds of issues with this clutch assembly. So these big pins that your clutch shoes pivot on are supposed to be like staked in place, right? They're not supposed to move in this arm. This one is no longer staked in there. That pin is freely pivoting in there, so that's no good. We got nails and baling wire for cotter keys. There's somebody who's been here before. We got lots of issues to deal with on this clutch. I got a feeling we might be looking at Michigan Parts Tractor clutch parts for better useful parts here possibly. So this pin is shouldered in there. I'm guessing it probably should be like a press fit and then staked in place so it doesn't rotate or back out. And it's loose and wiggly, So I don't know what exactly is wore out here. Hopefully, with any luck, it's just the pin. We can make a new pin, press it in there, and this could be fixed. Another observation, there's actually 2 layers of clutch face material on these shoes. There should only be 1 layer. So I'm not sure what was going on there. If they didn't have the right thickness, or if they just didn't know how to properly adjust the clutch, so they put more on to try to take up wear, or what. But yeah, you can adjust the clutch with this turnbuckle here. You just turn that and then adjust the shoes in or out accordingly, just like a 2035 Alice. Same concept. It's basically the same clutch, just a little bit different size. So it was a little bit different than what I thought, I guess. This is actually all one piece, so it all comes together as one chunk. This goes over it, of course. The keys are very worn, so hopefully that might be the only problem. If we put some new keys in, that might take up all the slop. This one's not as bad. That pin that had the nail as a cotter pin, that was not the same as the rest. Doesn't have the same flat heads like everything else has. It looks to me, I'm pretty sure somebody made this pin out of a carriage bolt. Kind of funny. There's your brake material. So it's like the 2035 short fenders, where when the clutch lever also is a transmission brake lever. So when you're disengaged and the lever's all the way forward, it engages this to stop your clutch from moving around, spinning. We'll have to look into getting some material for that as well to replace them, as long as we're at it. It doesn't actually look too terrible, but if we're this deep, we might as well replace them, because it's a pain. If you wanted to replace this down the road, the engine's got to get pulled and everything to get this out of there. So now is the time to fix it. Comparison of the yoke for the clutch. This is from this clutch here, from the one in the yard. A little bit of wear. The one from the tractor in the garage here, this clutch has a ton of wear. So that'll be something we'll have to address, rebuilding them. Not exactly sure how we're going to tackle that yet, but that'll be a project for most likely both pairs. Well, I made a solid attempt to get this off. Few different pullers. I can't get it to budge here with what I got, so I guess that'll be a bring it home and put it in the press with the big bearing splitter, which happens to be at home at the moment. We should be able to get it apart that way. That's okay. We got plenty of other stuff to work on. Got the old brake linings, or clutch linings rather, off of all the clutch shoes. All I did was take the cold chisel, knock the back sides of the rivets off. They're just copper rivets, so they're really easy to cut. They're all these flathead countersunk copper rivets. And then just took a punch and punched them out. Kind of interesting, the one that had the 2 layers, it's the old USA Raybestos, just like the parts manual calls out for. That must have been a pretty popular brand back in the day. I don't know if they're still in business or not, but it also goes without saying a little caution should be exercised when dealing with old brake and clutch shoes and linings, because obviously there's some asbestos potentially in them. Most likely in these there is, for sure. I'm not too terribly worried about it because these are so oil soaked. There's no dust getting up in the air with these, and of course I will dispose of these now that they are off. But if you do ever have dry brake shoes and clutches and whatever, the best thing you can do is wet them all down before you start messing with them, just to keep that dust at bay, because that's what's dangerous, breathing in the asbestos dust, of course, brake dust, clutch dust. So moving on to the next thing, removing the clutch arm from the shaft. A little bit of a wedge in between to open it up slightly, and then it's pulling off nicely there. Not actually much resistance there at all, so I'm hoping that'll be a nice tight fit again when we put everything back together. Cleaning up this backer plate for the left side here now. You can see the carnage of this keeper ring now. I've got some of the dirt cleaned off of it. Oh, it's very worn. I mean, some of the rivets are actually gone because it's ground the heads of the rivets right off. I found these bits of shrapnel. This was wedged in here, and these two were wedged in there. Not sure what those are, where they came from yet. It looks like little pieces of cast. I don't know what those, as far as I know, I'm not missing any like teeth on the final drives or anything. Of course, we don't have them cleaned up yet to know. Kind of a mystery there. I'm not sure where those came from. But that might have been part of the reason, you know, if those got, something broke, got wedged down in there, wedged that up higher for that to wear, could have been maybe where that problem started, question mark, I don't know. I'll continue cleaning this up and playing more detective work here. And the back side of the backer plate is roughly cleaned up, so now I can get the rivets ground off and disassemble this. What do we got going on here? Wheels cut off shafts. More wheels cut off shafts. No wheel on the shaft anymore. How'd you manage that, Jacob? I used my recent addition to the shop. There's a press here now. That happened today. Friend is getting rid of a few things and he sold it to me. So I figured, well, as long as I got a press here, I can do some of these things that I was going to bring home. To make it easier to put in the press, I cut the shaft off since we're going to make a new shaft anyway, because this press isn't quite tall enough to do it with the shaft in place. So I'm going to get that other wheel off, and I might try to see if I can get that clutch apart then too, that I was going to bring home. See if I can come up with the right kind of stuff to safely try to press that apart too. Kind of fun. Switch to a longer bolt. There. Ta-da! Well, dang. Looking at this hub, it's cracked. There. That's unfortunate. Can't believe, I'm assuming I probably did that pressing it out. It's hard to believe that though. I had it well supported underneath on the V-blocks, push blocks underneath. Bummer. Well, luckily we got a spare wheel on the parts tractor, but I suppose this one could be fixed too, but I don't know if it's worth the effort. Bummer. I got the spinner knobs pressed out of both wheels as well. Got them soaking. Bring them home, put them in the lathe and drill out and sacrifice the pin to save the spinner, because I know from experience that those are always rusted on there tight. We've been down that road before, and it's easier to sacrifice, make a new internal pin than take the chance of wrecking the original cast handle spinner. So I switched gears and I took apart the stuck adjustable ends from this tie rod. Very bent on both ends. Well, that end's really bad. This end is also bent, very corroded. So I think we're going to remake this part. There's the other end. A little heat was necessary to remove them, but they came off. Still got to get the stuck cross pin out of there. This thing really took a hit in the front end. They must have really hit something hard because that front axle is bent. This front tie rod is bent. The spindles are all broken. The wheel, I mean, they must have really hit something hard. I don't know how you even do that. Okay, you're probably wondering, well, why are you even working on this? That's not part of, you're really bouncing around, Jacob. Well, this is my thought process. This steering shaft that we cut off and sacrificed is slightly bigger than this tie rod. So I think what we can do is make a new tie rod out of this old steering shaft, turn it down slightly to get to this size. It's still, even the good size here is about the worn size of the steering shaft, so that'll work out good. It's long enough. Really only probably need one because the other steering rod I believe was okay from this tractor. Yeah, that one looks all right. We will have to do some straightening of the actual ends. That one I think was okay, but this one was pretty spread and mangled. Hopefully a little bit of heat and persuasion we can straighten them back out without breaking them. There again, we could check what the ones on the Michigan tractor look like, but I think if I remember right, that stuff was pretty lousy on that tractor. But we'll have to double check before we get too crazy on anything. But yeah, that's my logic there. Probably bring that back home. Put that on Dad's list of things to do when he has nothing else to do. Speaking of Dad, we got some news from Swanson Machine Shop. I'm going to have to start cleaning up some steering box parts here sooner rather than later because Dad was working on steering boxes here the other day. He actually sent me this footage. Check it out.
Okay, we're pulling one of these gib keys out of here. We cut the key off, drilled and tapped. I don't know if you can see down there, but right down there is a bolt, but I drilled and tapped a 1/4 inch thread down inside that key because we couldn't get it out. And I got a little setup here, get a little leverage on it, and turn this jack bolt here. And if you can see that, it's pulling that key out real slowly. And it's just about loose enough to probably pull it by hand now. It's coming real good. Just a little trick I learned over the years on pulling gib keys out when the heads are shot on them. We'll do the same thing on the other one. I milled the head off first.
So that's the good news. The bad news is he also found this. So that's unfortunate. Cracked box. Luckily we'll have to use the other Michigan Parts Tractor spare box. So we should still have enough good parts. So making good progress on both fronts, North Dakota and Wisconsin. All right, I'd thank you all for watching. As usual, I hope to see you again in the near future. I try to put out videos about once a week or so, so check back often. See you later. Thanks for watching.